Hello and welcome to the second episode of Indie Designer Journal. So I guess this officially makes this a series. I wasn't sure how many of these I would make, but I'm at least making two. We'll see how well these do. If people enjoy them, I'll keep making them. Today we're going to be looking at one of the combat systems that we looked or discussed last episode, specifically the dice pool system. Of the two that we discussed, I sort of messed around with both of them a little bit more. This using the dice pool mechanic seems a little bit better right now. I think it adds that tension. I love spending energy to increase the number of dice you roll. I mean, I've used that in Iron Helm, Desolate, and a few other of my games. I think it's just a fun mechanic because you're sort of wagering. You're sort of taking a chance before you roll. But you're always going to do better, so it's not like you're throwing away an opportunity there. So what I did is I made up a character and I made up an enemy. We'll look at these two and we'll actually run through a combat session. We'll see how it goes. I have not actually tested this yet. I mean, I've rolled some dice and sort of seen some probabilities, but I haven't actually done this combat session with these characters. So I'm going into this blind with you, and hopefully it works out. If not, we'll chalk it up as a learning experience. And last video, I got a lot of great feedback in the comment section. I think I got like 20 or 30 comments, and I truly appreciate it. I tried to respond to most people, and I got a lot of great ideas from that, and a lot of suggestions for games to research. I've looked into a few of them, including Spire's End. So that's one of the things we're gonna do in this video is we're gonna look at this combat. We're gonna actually run through a quick combat, see how it goes. Secondly, we're going to look at a crafting mechanic that I want to introduce to this UnderQuest. UnderQuest being my next dungeon delving game. I want there to be some sort of crafting for the alchemy. So I made up some cards. I'm going to show you what I have so far, and I'm going to obviously look for suggestions from people out there and maybe some games that use crafting that I should look at, and maybe you have your own suggestions, and we'll see what we can come up with together. Lastly, the last thing we'll do in this video is I got a bunch of miniatures in the mail from the Game Crafter. This is the dragon, and a bunch more. Fantasy themed ones is obviously what I was drawn to, so I ordered a bunch of them. We'll take a quick look at them and we'll go look at the quality of them. I'll give you an idea of what they cost, as a lot of you are game designers, so you might be interested in seeing a few of them, and I'll give you an idea of what they cost. You can just kind of see what they look like sort of in person. But just a little spoiler, they're very nice, and I think they're priced very well for what they are. The ability to add a mini to a print-on-demand game for 50 cents for a standard size mini, I think is a no-brainer if you can utilize them properly. And you can use a dozen of them or so in a game, and it only costs you $6 or $7. So I think it's a really cool addition to the Game Crafter. So that's the last thing we'll look at. So right now we're going to turn the camera around at the table, and we're going to take a look at this combat, and hopefully it goes well. Okay, here we go. We have everything here we need for our little combat session. Again, we're using the dice tray that me and my son put together. We got our D6 for our dice pool. I want to do hit location with a D12, but that might change. Maybe I get some suggestions. Maybe I can utilize just all D6. That'd be great for a cost perspective, but for this game I'm not too concerned. We could use D12. So let's get into what we got here. Here's our character. We're going to be playing as Barnock the Twisted. He has a health of 20. Should probably get something to keep track of my health with. We'll use a pen. I should have a pencil ready, but I don't. Here's what we're going to use for our energy. We're going to spend those to utilize dice. Here's all our locations of our body: our head, right arm, left arm, torso, legs, feet. This is what's equipped on them, and this is the defense value that it gives us. So our head has a chain coif, which gives us 2 defense, and our torso, legs, and feet all have leather, so they all have a defense of 1. Our arms have nothing. We do have a buckler though, and how this weapon or item is going to be used potentially. Again, all this is up in the air, obviously, and this is all just craziness, just drawn on a scrap pieces of paper. But right now, I like to test the buckler as it just blocks 2 damage. You can use it to block 2 damage, but once you use it 3 times, it's gone. So we'll utilize, I guess, more of these cubes since I have an abundance of them from another prototype. So maybe I'll, just for the sake of this game, I'll put 3 of them on here. We'll take them away as we use them up, and once they're gone, the card will be discarded. We are equipped with the old blade with 1 success on a dice. So for those of you just tuning in, if you didn't watch the last episode, we're basically going to roll dice, 6-sided dice. 5s and 6s are going to be successes. Now I got some suggestions to add an exploding dice mechanic, so we're going to test that as well. And how that's going to work is a 5 is going to be just a normal success. 6 is going to be a critical success, which allows us to re-roll that dice. If you roll a 5, you'll get to add that as an additional success. So in theory, you could just roll 1 dice and keep rolling 6s and potentially kill something pretty in a nasty fashion. So the old blade, 1 success does 2 damage, 2 success does 5 damage. If I get 3 successes, I'll do 9 damage. Now I'm also adding a mechanic for if you roll a 1, so like a critical failure. We're going to call them blunders. I just like the sound of that word. If you roll a 1, it's a blunder, and it'll cancel out a success. So this might not work. Well, we're going to test it out right now and see how well that works. So blunders will cancel out any success. And in the case of this blade, if I happen to roll 3 blunders, so 3 1s, which would be highly unlikely, but the weapon will break. So it adds a little bit of tension there. The more dice you roll, the more the harder to hit you're going to be attempting. The more likely that if something goes wrong, it's going to go really wrong. So I think it thematically makes sense. If you're swinging a blade with all of your might and you're spending a bunch of energy, and you're going to swing like a madman, and you roll a few 1s, you're going to break your item. So I think that's fun. Last couple of things on here, we have a brawn of 3. A lot of this isn't going to come into play now. A lot of this has more to do with narrative, but with these 3 stats, your brawn, agility, and mind will affect you in combat. Brawn will determine the max number of energy you can use with the melee weapon. That's what I'm going with right now. Agility will do the same for a ranged weapon. Brawn will also affect how much starting health you have and how much you can carry. Agility, for our character, this is the only reason I wrote anything here, is it allows us to adjust the target that when we hit the enemy. So when we roll the dice to see where we hit the enemy, I can adjust it in either direction, plus or minus 2, because there's certain parts of this enemy that are more prone to, are easier to deal damage to. So I think that adds a kind of a tactical aspect to this game. It sort of takes what we've seen in my other games, Tin Helm, Iron Helm, and such, and sort of elevates it to more, there's a lot more going on. So let's look at the Bone Collector. That's who we're fighting, the Bone Collector. He's got 3 heads. I don't know why. He just does. And just really quickly, his head is the area that's prone. So 1, 2, and 3 will hit his head, and you'll do 2 extra damage if you hit his head. His arms and his feet all have 1 defense. His torso, which is majority of the roll, 6, 7, 8, 9, or 10 will hit his torso, has 2 defense. He's just a big fat guy. He can take some blows. This is where things get kind of interesting. This is where we're going to really see how, if this is too complicated. I don't think it is. There's a lot of text on here, but this won't be in the final version if we go this route. You'll just see these words like overconfident, fair, rage, and you'll have a card or a reference sheet that tells you what these different effects are. So essentially, the Bone Collector has 20 life, just like us. I figured we started off even to see how it goes. He has a power of 3, which means he'll always roll 3 dice in combat. Now, maybe we'll have certain things or effects that'll take place that will make him roll more or less. In fact, There might be one here. We'll look in a second. But anyways, he rolls 3 dice in combat. Successes will do this amount of damage. So 1 success does 2 damage, 2 success does 4, 3 and 4 successes, because he could also roll critical successes and roll again and get another success. So there's the potential he could get 4 successes, and he'll do up to 12 damage. So he could just, murder you. These little asterisks means that a special power will come into play if this happens. This might be overpowering, so we're going to see, but it'll cause fear. Player must make a successful mind check, or their next attack will cost 1 extra energy. Now, all of your skills have a numeric value, so to do a check on it, it's very simple, very typical RPG. You have to roll your stat or less. So to do a mind check for Barnock the Twisted, he only has a mind value of 2, so I'd have to roll this dice. That was not a success because I'd rolled over my ability. So then that would mean I would be in fear the next round, and I would have to, it'd cost extra energy to attack. Just because thematically you'd be, fumbling for your weapon, or you'd be trembling. So that's basically what he does in combat. Also, at the end, there will be a reaction. How does the enemy react? Well, depending upon how much life he has, so less than half life or more than half his life. Probably one of these should say half his life or more. Doesn't matter. We'll make it through this. We roll a single 6-sided dice and we see what he does. So he could cause fear again. That could be one of the things he does. He could just, maybe he screams, or he does something that causes us to do another mind check. He could go into a rage, which here it says the next round, rage 5x plus 5 to next attack, but only 6s count as the 6 successes. So the next round he will do 5 extra damage, but only when he rolls 6s. 5s won't count as successes. So he's in a rage. It's a kind of a classic berserker type mechanic where he'll hit for harder, but it's harder for him to hit. And then lastly, the other thing is overconfident. So that's something we want him to become. If he becomes overconfident, it's only 6s will be successful for the next round, but they don't do extra damage. So there's a lot of cool different effects that we can have all these enemies have. So there could be a huge list, not a huge list, but say 15 or so different things that they can do. And depending upon the monster, it could be part of their reaction, it could be a part of their attacks. So let's get into the combat. Before I spend too much time going over all the nitty-gritty details. So give me 1 second. I'm going to have a sip of coffee and we'll come right back and we'll get into the combat. Okay, one more thing before we start rolling. I know I like to talk and not actually get into this combat, but initiative. So I want to come up with some sort of initiative mechanic. In most of my prior games, it was like, enemies that always attack first, unless certain circumstances happen, or the player always attacks first, like in Tin Helm. I want there to be something that just says we have a set initiative value, and when you fight a monster, whoever has the lowest value gets to go first in that combat. So potentially it could be based off of one of these stats. So I'm assuming agility personally feels like the stat that I should go off of. So maybe agility will determine your value of your initiative. So when you get into combat situations, we know who attacks first. But for the sake of this, we're going to attack first because we get to make the rules. So Barnock the Twisted is facing the Bone Collector, and how I'm doing this is something a little different as well. Instead of having to spend, like if I spend 3 energy, I get to roll 3 dice. That means that if I go back to like Iron Helm mechanics, if you don't spend energy, you can always do 1 damage. I want to kind of eliminate that, and I'm thinking what I want to do is you can always roll 1 dice. So I think what that does is allows a player to survive a little bit. If you get into combat, you can always roll. If you roll a 6, you can maybe get an exploding situation where you keep rolling. You could maybe have no energy left and have one of those like epic battles and do a bunch of damage. So for this test, we're going to have it be that I always get to roll 1 dice, and for every energy I spend beyond that is more dice I can roll. So because my brawn is 3, I can spend 3 energy to roll 3 extra dice, meaning that Barnock, if he spends 3 energy, can roll 4 dice. I hope that makes sense. And I think we're just going to start off rolling 4 dice. I mean, we have our full energy here. We have 12 energy. I'm going to spend 3 right off the bat. And I'm going to roll 4 dice. And I only got 1 success. And I got 2 critical failures or blunders, whatever we want to call those. So how I'm testing this is this would negate a success, which means I missed. So I wasted 3 energy. So what we're testing right now is if we actually like this blunder mechanic. Now maybe this blunder mechanic only does things like breaks weapons or things like that and doesn't negate this dice. That might be too much. But anyways, let's keep moving on. So I do no damage. Now he gets to attack me. He gets to roll 3 dice. He gets a critical success. These don't count as anything. And so he gets to re-roll this. So he already has 1 success. And now he has 2 successes. He gets to keep rolling. And he gets 3 successes. So this could be maybe the shortest combat sequence ever. So he got 3 successes, which means he does 8 damage. And he's also going to do fair. But let's look at this damage first. He does 8 damage. Let's see where he hits me. So we'll roll a 12-sided dice. He hits me in the 6. The 6 is my torso, which has leather armor. So I get to subtract 1 from that. So, whoa, he does 8, so he does 7 damage right off the bat. We are down to 13. Wow, that was not great. Okay, so he gets to attempt to cause fair, so we have to do a check on our mind. So I'll roll a 6-sided dice. Let's bring these guys out of here. And I need to get a 1 or a 2. And I got a 3, so I failed, which means next round I'm going to have to spend 1 extra energy to roll extra dice. So that's the end of the round. Let's see how the bone collector is going to go into the next round. Now we don't roll this for his reaction. We get to roll this, and he rolled a 2. So this actually thematically makes a ton of sense. So the bone collector rolled a 2. He has more than half his life. So he's overconfident now. Makes sense. He just walloped us and we just totally whiffed on him. So now he's overconfident, which means next round he's going to have to roll 6s to be successful. So that's a good sign for us. Now we're going into this round, and now that we're in fair, if I spend 3 energy, I'm only going to get to roll 3 dice because I get 1 less dice, and I'm going to have to do that. So we're just going to see. We're just testing this, seeing how this goes. Maybe this isn't going to work. I have to make some tweaks. That's always what happens in these situations. So I'm going to spend 3. I only get to roll 3 dice. I can't after 1 roll. I can't roll 1 time and get a couple of 1s and say, okay, this mechanic sucks. I have to play this a bunch of times. That's what playtesting is for. So there we go. So I got 1 success, 2 success, and I get to re-roll this, and I got a 1. So that's what we have to discuss here. If I re-roll on a critical success, does the 1 negate one of my successes? I'm going to say no. So I'm going to say I got 2 successes, mainly because I don't want to die. 2 successes. Well, I could have used my buckler. I'm going to say I used my buckler that last turn, so I have 15 health. Because I get to subtract 2. Okay, so it doesn't matter where in the body either. A buckler can be used to, tactically to protect yourself. So I did two successes. I do 5 damage. Let's see where I hit. Hopefully, I get to adjust my target area too. So I rolled a 7. 7 is his torso. Well, we don't want to hit him in his torso. So I can adjust up or down 2. So I'm going to go down 2 to get to 5, which hits him in the arm instead. If I go the other way, I'll still be hitting his torso. 9 is still his torso. So I'll go down to 5, hit him in the arm, which means he only gets to do 1 defense, which means I do 4 damage to him. So the bone collector now has 16 health. Okay, now it's the bone collector's turn. he gets to roll 3 dice, and he has to roll 6s now because remember he's overconfident. Now another thing that we could do is just throwing this out here. We could have a mechanic where as his energy, as his health goes down, the number of dice that he gets to roll goes down. There's a lot of things we can do with this system, but for now we're just going to stick with this. He gets to roll 3, and he gets no successes. So he was overconfident, and he just went crazy and swung his sword and missed us terribly, which is absolutely fine with us. But that ends the round of combat. We need to see how he's going to react now. And no one gets to see that because it has to be a 6-sided dice. A 2. And he's overconfident still, even after missing. So a 1 or a 2 is overconfident with more than half his life. He still has more than half his life. So this is working out well for us. Unfortunately, we're running pretty low on energy here. I need to get a nice solid hit in here. But now I'm not in fair anymore. So now I'm going to spend 3 at the beginning of this combat round. So I'm going through energy in a crazy fashion here, way more than we ever saw in Iron Helm or anything else. So obviously some tweaking is going to have to be done here. Either energy is going to have to be gained quicker or easier, or less energy is going to have to be spent to roll dice. But we'll figure this all out. So we get to roll 4 dice with the old blade. Oh my word. That is not good. No successes on that swing. Okay. Now there's another little thing here called grit that one of the people on YouTube mentioned, using the idea of when we take a hit, we gain a grit, which would be another resource, and you can spend grit to re-roll a die, which I think is nice. It's sort of a catch-up mechanic, but I forgot to mention it, so we're not going to use that. But that could help. That could have helped us here, because we did take a hit before. We would have gained a grit, and then you have to spend that grit. Personally, I think you should have to spend it in that combat, or it goes away at the end of the combat. So if the dice are really hurting you and you're getting walloped, you're getting some ability to mitigate your dice. Okay, now jerk face. The bone collector gets to roll. And no successes he needs because he was overconfident. Now let's roll and see how he reacts. Now 5. So now he is in a rage. Okay, so rage means that next round he still has to roll 6s, but if he does connect, he does 5 extra damage. So things could get ugly here. I am going to spend my last 3 because there's no reason, I don't think, not to at this point. At the beginning of this round, roll 4 dice and hope to get a big hit here. We need it. And I got 1 success. That is not going to be very helpful. 1 success means only 2 damage. Let's see where we hit this guy. On the 1, so that's good. That's one of his heads. So we won't adjust that with our agility. So we'll leave that there, which means we get to do 2 extra damage because his head is a prone part of his body, which means we'll do a total of 4 damage. He is down to 12. Okay, and I'm at 15. So this is kind of taking a little longer than I want, but I do want the boss fights to take 4 or 5 rounds, because in Iron Helm it was sort of 2 rounds, 3 rounds maybe. They didn't go too long. I want there to be a little bit more back and forth, a little bit more tactical. We'll go a couple more rounds here. I'm out of energy, so obviously there's adjustments that have to be made. But I do kind of like the way it feels. It needs some tweaks, obviously. Again, open to suggestion. Please leave some comments below. Okay, so it is now his turn. He gets to roll 3. Remember, if he needs to roll 6s to hit me. But if he does hit, he gets to do a total of 5 extra damage. Oh, he got a success and a 6, which means you get to re-roll that 6. Oh, no, never mind. The 5 doesn't count. The 6 is a success. He gets to explode that. He didn't get it again, but he did get 1 success, which means he gets to do 2 damage plus the 5 because he's in a rage, so he does 7 damage. Let's see where he hits me. In the 1, he hits me in my feet. I got 1 defense there, so the 7 damage becomes 6 damage. I'm going to use my buckler to make it 5 damage, and I am down to 10. So it's somewhat even, but the issue that we're having is the bone collector has unlimited energy. He's going to keep rolling 3 dice every round. So at this point, I'm out of energy. So odds are I'm going to lose. I'm going to get killed here. The grit thing might have helped. I should have implemented that. That's my fault. Some tweaks are going to have to be made here. Maybe successes are 4, 5s, and 6s, or successes are evens and odds are failures. I'll have to come up with something here. Obviously, I'm open to some feedback. So let's move on to our next segment where we look at some crafting. Again, please leave some comments below on this mechanic, because this is going to be the meat and potatoes of UnderQuest, is this combat system. So I'm trying to hone in on something here, and I'm hoping that you're all on board. So let's move on. Thank you. Okay, one of the things that I want to do, make changes, obviously from Iron Helm, we want to evolve. We want to take the things that we liked from previous designs and re-implement them and build upon them. So one of the things in Iron Helm that at first seemed really cool and it worked pretty well was how loot and treasure worked, having a couple different options and you got to draw some cards. But it felt kind of weird where you would fight a certain monster and you would draw a random loot card, and it didn't thematically make sense. So in UnderQuest, I want there to be different types of treasure cards. So there'll be your traditional loot cards, which will have your weapons and your more, probably your equipment, the things that are probably more valuable. But I also wanted there to be ingredients for potions, and I also want there to be consumables, one-time use cards, that you can spend. There'll be maybe mini cards. You can spend them to re-roll a dice or spend them to gain 2 energy. Just really simple, small cards that you can utilize. Now, these would be the ingredients. Now, I just made up some silly ones here. And you would draw one of these cards, and so we got Dragon Fart, because you got to have Dragon Farts in any game. And there would be some symbols on here. This is what I'm working with here. So we have 2 hearts, a lightning, which would be for energy, and then this would be for curing poison, very familiar to those of you who've played Iron Helm. So on by itself, as we all know, Dragon Farts are useless. You can't do anything with them. But if you draw another ingredient card by defeating another enemy, maybe some enemies will give you 2 ingredients, who knows. You'll draw another card, and we got an ogre toe. You can mix them to get an effect if there's matching symbols. So in this case, I can mix an ogre toe with a dragon fart and gain 4 energy. These other 2 symbols here would be food, and this one here is curses, because there will be curses in UnderQuest. There might even be diseases. We don't know yet. There's so many possibilities. There's so many ways that I can kill you in this next game. So I think that's kind of fun. And you don't have to just spend 2 right now. I'm thinking maybe you could keep drawing, and you'd keep these in your inventory, and when you wanted to, you would just discard them to utilize whatever effect you wanted. But it might be advantageous to collect a few before making decisions, because here we have a rat tail and the eye of a needle. Yeah, an eye of a needle. Because now you have choices down the road. Maybe at some point you really need that 3 health, so you could spend these 2 to get the 3 health. Now you have a 5 energy you can use this for, or you could use it for the curses. Now, I don't know if you could combine these and get both the effects. In my opinion, I feel like you need to choose one, but I'm open to suggestions with that. So in this case, you could combine the eye of a needle and the ogre toe to get 5 energy, or to get rid of a curse. Now, what I'm thinking here with the curses is it's going to be some sort of like the pyramid in Gate, where every time you get cursed by different types of enemies, mostly undead, you'll move up on some sort of scale, and then at certain points terrible things will happen. You'll have to draw cards that will give you afflictions, or you'll start going insane. There's so many possibilities, but so you'd only get one. So maybe this would show half of a skull. And I think the same for the food, because food's going to be one of those commodities that are going to, I don't want them to be too easy to get. So maybe it's a half a food and a half a food. So if I combine the rat tail with an ogre toe, I get one food. But everything else I think makes good sense. This might be too much poison curing. Maybe that ought to be dialed back a little bit. And what's the last item we have here? Oh, impure thoughts, just in case you needed a little vial of impure thoughts. So the final game likely won't have such ridiculous items or ingredients, but this is sort of what I'm going with right now. These might be on mini cards as well. Simple illustrations. I'm leaning towards black and white with maybe a touch of red for UnderQuest. But tell me how you feel about this. Obviously we've seen things like this before. This is in Skyrim and Elder Scroll type games where you're doing your alchemy. But I think it's a simple, quick, easy mechanic that there's icons, you match them up. Okay, I got 4 energy. I need it really bad. I'm gonna eat this ogre toe and the dragon fart, or whatever. I got poisoned by something, and I'm gonna spend these 2 now to get rid of that poison. So that's sort of what I'm going with right now. If you have any thoughts or any suggestions, please let me know below. Now let's move on to some miniatures. Okay, so I got a whole box of miniatures I ordered from the Game Crafter, and I wanted to go through them pretty quickly here, just in case you're interested in them. And I'll start with the biggest one first. I believe, I could be wrong, I want to say this dragon is $2.50. I might be wrong, but I think it was around $2.50, and it's the most expensive miniature I think they have right now. But to be able to add, a dragon like this, I mean, that's 4 inches tall all day long, to a game for $2.50, I think that's an incredible price. Now, I'm not going to say this is the greatest, mini I've ever seen. It's done on a 3D printer. There's some strings on here. It needs to be cleaned up a little bit. Looks like this wing they might have missed a little bit there. But overall, I mean, for $2.50 to have this as could be a centerpiece of some sort of a game. So I'm really impressed by it, and mostly the price point for it being a print-on-demand item to be something like this for that price. And like I said, it could be that's not a showstopper, but I mean, you have that on the table, that's going to get some attention. So some of the other really cool ones they have is this Devil Fiend, I think they call it. And again, like I said, there's some strings on them, but for the most part, all the detail in the cobblestone looks good. The detail in the fur and the horns and the weapon in his hand, everything is pretty good for what you would expect. And I want to say this is the next size down. I want to say it's $1.50 for that guy. And I have another one that's fairly large, this giant troll ogre guy throwing a stone. I really like him. I like this green, and it's got like some kind of wood planks that he's standing on. These would be, I mean, that'd be fun. It'd just be fun to add to a game. Let's see what else I got here. I got a whole bunch of stuff. We got a classic little orc with a shield and a sword. And then these smaller ones are all in the 50-cent range. Some are as low as like 49. I think they go up to about 60. I'm assuming it has to do with the how much detail. And we got this little, I'm sure there's a name for it and I can't think of it. We got this guy here. Looks like he would bite you and hurt you bad. We got some sort of undead priest or a wizard. And again, a couple little pieces that can be pulled off. But for the most part, yeah, pretty solid little pieces. Looks like some sort of orc shaman. Here we have some sort of lizard guy with a spear. And I like the color. I really love these green and the red. This looks like a pig-faced orc. Very like classic D&D with his pike. I really like him. As like just a minion type character you have to battle a lot of. Some kind of wolf creature. I didn't really pay attention when I ordered this guy with archer. I got another wolf guy with an axe. Might be a gnoll. Then we have a harpy. She's probably my least favorite. I don't know. She's pretty good. I think she'd probably look really good painted. Maybe it's the blue. Then I have a bunch of undead ones. We're going to go kind of quickly through here. I got an undead archer. Again, some strings on there, but I think this guy's might be one of the cheaper ones for, 40 something cents or 50 cents. It's a nice addition. This one here has some chain armor on it and a sword. Here's a well armored skeletal knight. He's really cool. Big old sword, shield. He's got the plate armor on there and just the skull head sticking out the top. That'd look really cool painted. I had to get the Grim Reaper. I almost added a Grim Reaper to banners, but I went with the Hag instead. Some kind of a tree creature. Too small to be an Ent, but pretty cool. Could be like a earth elemental, or I'm not exactly sure what it is on the site. Then we have the ogre. Now, I feel like this ogre should be much larger, and I'm not a fan of the yellow, but I understand the reasoning. I spoke with JT, and he said that they just can't do. They have to spread the colors out a little bit just because they have certain machines set up to use certain colors. So, but anyways, I think this ogre should be this size. It's an ogre. It should be big. It should be giant. So it looks like just kind of like a fat merchant. Okay, we have a elf sorceress. Now we're getting into sort of more of the heroes. We got like some sort of spell sword type character here. Really cool. We have a elven archer, Legolas. We got this one I really like. It's a bard with the flute. Really kind of a cool, with the sword on their side. Really cool character. Oh, the classic wizard with the staff and a sword. Very Gandalf-like. We got some sort of berserker barbarian with an axe and a sword. That's the way to go. I like this old dwarf here. He looks very old D&D, original D&D kind of feel to him. Then I got this big knight here with a giant shield, and it looks like it's just a sword. He's ready for business. Could be a bad guy or a guard or something, head of the captain of the guard or something. Now here's more of a traditional dwarf with the a warhammer and a shield, something more, token-ish. I guess this would be token-ish as well, but this is more like modern fantasy feel to it. This one here feels like it's from the 70s. Looks like we got ourselves a sorcerer. I can't tell if it's an elf. Looks like it does have elf ears. Pure sorcerer type character. I really like this one here. I forgot what they call it on there, but it's just like a classic looking knight with a sword and full armor. He looks like he's ready for business. He could just be a good, solid, like your frontline tank type character. And I got one more mini, and that is this. It's a Norse warrior. It's a female. I used her in the Iron chest expansion for Iron Helm. So yeah, anyone who backed that will get this one, and it's a really nice character. That's why I chose it. So you have that. So last real quick thing here is this fantasy money. I ordered a bunch of it, but I'll show you the different coins they have. And I think these start at 12 or 13 cents for this little one. I use this in banners. It says 1 on one side, then it has like a griffin or eagle with a 1 on the other. I love that it's like 10-sided and there's like texture behind it, and just feels like fantasy money. But it's not like, doesn't like scream any particular world, so it's very universally appealing if you're making a game. And then here's the 5-cent piece, which is silver. So the one is like a bronze. This is a silver. It says 5 on this side, and it has a unicorn on the other side with a 5. And then there's the gold one, which is a little bit larger. It says 10, and then there's a dragon on the back side. Yeah, these are really cool way to add currency to your game. I want to say they're, I don't know, 13, 16, and 19 cents or something like that. So they're not cheap, but if you're able to design your game in a way that allows you to use minimal amount of, things, just enough to add flair, I think you can get away with using a few of these in your game and really up the perceived value of it. So that's all I have. Thanks again for stopping by. I appreciate everyone who's left comments in the previous video, and hopefully you leave some comments in this video. Please let me know if there's any topics that you'd like me to go over or discuss. Obviously, I'm going to keep working on this combat system and try to get that honed in. But it's really fun sharing this stuff with you folks and seeing what you guys think or giving me feedback on it and sort of building a game together, essentially. I think it's easier to do to be open with the process. And maybe that's a topic because a lot of people are very secretive about what they're working on because they're afraid people are going to steal their ideas. And in reality, you should be as open as you possibly can because you're allowing. Two things are happening. One, you're opening yourself up to receiving a ton of feedback from people who know more about certain things than you do. You can't know everything, and you're also sharing your game or your design with other people, and you'll start sparking their interest in what you're doing. So it's a two-way road. So. Maybe that will be a topic. But if you have any other suggestions, please leave them below. And I appreciate everyone supporting. And if you like what I'm doing, please consider subscribing. And thanks again.